If cameras are everywhere, why is America so dangerous? By Jen. Let's check it out. Let's go.
So you're driving to work and you see these cameras on almost every corner. Most of you think, good, I hope they catch that asshole that rear-ended me last week. And besides, every week there's another attempt on public figures, schools, and another crackhead who ended up some innocent kid's life. And so we need more cameras. It keeps us safe. But actually, this system is making America more dangerous than ever.
We cannot prevent terrorist attacks without some capability to penetrate digital communications.
But how? On one side, the surveillance system doesn't even work when it's actually needed. It's been almost 2 years and we still don't have an answer for how any of this happened. But on the other side, it works perfectly the second it wants to find someone like you. NSA employees use surveillance to spy on their own ex-wives, girlfriend, and love interests. And more recently, one cop used the national surveillance network to hunt one woman across state lines and then lied to the public about why. But hold on, it's still keeping us safe, right? Well, what makes this interesting is that crime has been shrinking for the last 30 years. But during the same time, we went from having almost no surveillance to more cameras per person than any country on Earth, more than even China. So there's clearly something deeper behind these cameras. So to find out, I spent weeks following the money. And what I found is a $1 trillion industry that gets richer every time the system fails, and it only works by selling a country to be afraid of itself. And if something doesn't change, we're heading towards a version of our country that's way more dangerous than watching every move we make. So to understand how mass surveillance is making America more dangerous, we first have to go back and figure out how they sold all of this to us in the first place. And to understand the playbook, and trust me, it's wild, you first have to really understand the numbers to see how any of this doesn't really make sense. And maybe I don't get to do this enough on the channel, but today we get to start off with some good news, some hope. You may not believe it, but by almost every measure, this is one of the safest periods in modern American history. Violent crime in America has fallen by more than half since its peak in 1991. And even during COVID, where homicides had one of the highest one-year jumps the FBI has ever recorded, it came right back down. So on paper, you're statistically less likely to be robbed, assaulted, or unalived than your parents were at any age. One of the few things we get a better deal on. But now the question becomes, does that match up with how you feel? Well, not really.
I wonder if that's because you hear more about everything because of technology as well.
2005 to 2024, Gallup has asked Americans every year whether there's more crime than the year before, and on average, about 7 in 10 people said yes. But what polls found is that people are far more negative about crime in the country than the crime in their own neighborhood. So what this means is that Americans think crime is happening more than it really is from what they hear about crime from the media. And
that's what I think. It's like it's getting safer, but you just hear more crime so easily. It's more accessible that it feels more dangerous.
Kind of makes sense. In the 80s, a violent crime 3 states away was a paragraph on a newspaper that you never read.
And now you hear about it in the entire world.
HD clips on every platform, from Ring doorbells, body cams, and even live stream pew-pews, all while taking a shit. So even though crime has gone down, your exposure to crime clips went up 1,000-fold, and our brains can't really tell the difference. But that's the point.
Which is mental that you hear so much crime. You hear so much crime, and it's actually went lower, but that means how much was actually happening 30 years ago. Holy crap.
That fear is exactly what allows the playbook to work. It makes you say yes or I don't care to the next round of surveillance. But then you might be thinking, well, maybe crime has dropped because all these cameras are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So again, who the cares? Which also,
I also don't think I think cameras and the technology and stuff like someone that like unalive someone from 30 years ago could get away with it easier, so they could do it again and again, and you'd have serial killers compared to nowadays where you do it one unaliven, and then you get caught easier, so it prevents any more. So it's like, yeah, there's still one person causing that crime, but it stops a repetition of it much easier.
It makes sense, except there's one big problem. Since the 90s, the exact same crime drop happened in countries that never built anything close to America's surveillance state, which, by the way, used to not even be in the global top 10, and across countries like Canada, Western Europe, Australia, and Asia, we've seen similar rate drops where experts have even coined it the international crime drop. And the fact that it happened across dozens of countries with wildly different police forces, laws, and amount of surveillance is exactly why researchers are concluding that any single country's policies, including surveillance, probably mattered far less than people assume. Now, with that said, it would be pretty disingenuous to say that it doesn't help, because I'm sure DNA testing, cameras, and cell phone tracking made it genuinely harder for, like, serial killers to do their thing, which is part of the reason why they disappeared since they were going crazy in the 80s. But since then, we've only kept building, and now we have the most cameras per 100 people, and this is exactly why you need to understand the numbers, because crime has always been the cover story. Because
But it's control. I think it's a lot more control. It's a lot more getting information about people and stuff, like the data of people's life and how it's ran in the country and probably gets taken advantage of. But you could just say it's for crime and it makes it a hell of a lot easier.
if the cameras were really about catching bad guys, we'd have stopped at the cameras that catch bad guys. So why didn't we stop there? Well, it's because there's no revenue in peace. And once you see that, you start understanding this playbook. The same playbook that's been used to install every major piece of the surveillance system that you live inside today. And you'll see it step by step. In 1994, a law forced every phone company to build a permanent wiretap backdoor into their networks. And the pitch was simple. This is just so the FBI can catch drug dealers and mobsters. And this is important to remember. Engineers at the time warned that a backdoor built for the good guys would eventually get used by the bad guys, but they were ignored. Then the next step. 6 weeks after what happened in NYC in 2001, you get what I'm talking about, Congress passes the Patriot Act. Most members didn't even read it before voting yes, because how could you after what just happened? And how could you say no to a pitch like never again? But buried inside was one sentence, section 215, that let the government demand any tangible
May make an application for an order requiring the production of any tangible things, including books, records, papers, documents, and other items for an investigation to protect against international terrorism or clandestine intelligence activities.
thing from any business if they said it was related to the T word. Then the NSA used that one sentence to secretly copy nearly every American's phone records every day for
Oh my god, am I not meant to say that? Do I need to bleep it? The T word, really?
over a decade. But again, right, this is just the beginning. Because now in 2008, Congress passes the FIA.
How can we show it but we can't say it? What?
But again, right, every American's phone records every day for over a decade. But again, right, this is just the beginning. Because now in 2008, Congress passes the FISA Amendments Act, and the pitch this time was that this was only to spy on foreigners overseas, not Americans, except when those foreigners talk to those Americans, of course. And since then, the FBI's ran more than 278K improper warrantless searches on Americans, including January 6 suspects, George Floyd protesters, political donors, and a sitting US senator. And now what we're seeing today, most recently in 2017, where a startup called Flock Safety starts selling license plate cameras to police and homeowners associations with a pitch to stop car break-ins and find missing kids. Hopefully you're getting the picture. And by 2024, those cameras are now in over 4,000 American cities, and any cop on the network can search every license plate that drove past every camera in every single one of them. There's countless other moments and steps that you can say that I missed in the comments, but point is the pattern is the same. A scary thing happens, a new safety pitch, and a new temporary piece of surveillance gets sold to a public scared enough to say yes to almost anything. But more importantly, notice what never happened. It never, ever comes back off, and each time you stop caring less because, come on, If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But what I haven't even talked about is how people are cashing in at each step. Which leads me to a question that's way bigger than any of these laws, which is the incentives behind why somebody wanted to watch you badly enough to build all of this. So the real question is, who and what were they getting out of it that had nothing to do with keeping you safe? And talking about keeping you safe, the same thing applies to your money. That's where today's sponsor, AirWallet, ends it, and that's this. AirWallet held a SIP employee every single transaction runs in the background, stay in full control while the boring parts just stop. So skip now. And now back to
shout out to this guy and his
so as I
sponsors.
was saying, you now understand the playbook, but now the question is, who is cashing in and how? And what I found is a circular loop, where the same handful of people who got paid to build it got paid again to fix the machine they built. But money wasn't the only way people profited. And the best place to start is with the single person most responsible. His name is Keith Alexander. From 2005 to 2014, he ran the National Security Agency, or NSA, which means he personally built every domestic spying program that we just talked about. But in 2013, he started getting pressed. While running all of it, Alexander told Congress under oath that nobody at the NSA had broken the law or violated anyone's privacy. But then, 3 weeks later, his own internal watchdog sent a letter to Senator Chuck Grassley admitting that NSA employees have been caught at least 12 times using the agency's spy tools, using it secretly to monitor their own girlfriends, wives, and love interests. In fact, it happened so often that there was even a nickname for it called Love INT. And remember this because we'll see the patterns a little bit later. But what he does after his retirement is where it gets crazy. Within weeks, he starts a private cybersecurity company called Arent, selling the exact expertise he built to Wall Street banks for $1 million per month. And it was successful as hell. A few years later, he takes Arent public at a valuation of around $1.2 billion, and investors loved it because he kept telling them that growth was strong. But behind the scenes, he was moving completely differently. According to SEC filings and a later securities lawsuit, the whole time he was selling off more than 85% of his own stock near the top. And as you can imagine, Arent collapsed, and soon after, by 2023, everyone was laid off. But what happened to Keith?
He got rich.
While all of this was happening, he was given a seat on the board of Amazon, a company whose cloud division is one of the biggest providers of computing to the CIA and the rest of the intelligence world, but none of that really matters. Because the reason I'm talking about Keith Alexander isn't to pick on him. The whole point is he's the business model. The people who write the surveillance rules becomes the people who sell the surveillance gear, which makes it grow even more. But what it reveals more importantly is that this is one industry where you can fail upwards. And this is where we get into the incentives that drives that. Look at what happened after September of 2001. The agencies that missed it didn't get shut down. Instead, they got the biggest raise in their history.
And may God bless America.
And even after 2013, when Edward Snowden walked out of the NSA with proof of one of the biggest government overreach in modern history, again, the intelligence budget has only gone up every year since that. But not just that, the money then flows out to private contractors. Booz Allen Hamilton, the firm where Edward Snowden was working at, pulled in around $9.3 billion in revenue in 2023 and in nearly $12 billion by 2025, with roughly 95% of that coming from federal contracts. So whether there's an attack or no attack, caught the bad guy or missed him, the contracts renew and the number keeps going up. Where if you compare to any other business, if your products fail or they suck, you go out of business. But it doesn't happen in this industry because
That's
it doesn't
opposite.
depend on keeping you safe. If anything, failure becomes proof that you need to spend more. And it all works because they keep you scared and keep selling you the next upgrade with your taxes. And so when that's the incentive, it's like, no shit, why fear is such a big business in America. Because every line of division is every reason to hate someone that serves that grand purpose. It's probably why you watching probably hate at least 30% of the population. But even that still doesn't answer the most important question. Even if we ignore the well over trillions of dollars over the last 30 years, what we still don't know is whether all of this surveillance is making things safer, or is it leading to a future that's more dangerous than just crime? Because I think you and I can agree that if the surveillance state actually worked, you think that the moment it should and would work best will be moments with the biggest and clearest stakes. But that's not what happened on July 13th, 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania, when a 20-year-old kid named Thomas Crooks climbed onto a roof 130 yards from the stage and tried to unalive the current president. Now, before you tune out, take the politics out of it, because that's not the point. Because the real story is how this starts exposing the real danger. 3 local cops noticed him acting strange 90 minutes before he climbed the roof. A counter sniper team literally even photographed him and flagged him in a group chat, and a bystander even...
How is that? Like, you're just flagging him? I've never seen this image. Surely you do something. You don't just go, that seems suspicious.
Sniper team literally even photographed him and flagged him in a group chat, and a bystander even pointed at him and yelled, "He has a gun," for 2 to 3 minutes. And somehow, in the most monitored, photographed, and protected event, the Secret Service never got the message. And soon after, Crooks got 8 shots off and 1 person unfortunately died. But the part that should really bother you most is that almost 2 years later, none of us still really know how this happened. Congressional briefings keep getting redacted, documents keep getting sealed, and the biggest surveillance state in human history.
Honestly, how they could just like redact and hide stuff from the public is mental stuff. How, like, just getting away with it, that's mental.
Briefings keep getting redacted, documents keep getting sealed, and the biggest surveillance state in human history can't or won't tell you the full story of what happened. So again, take the conspiracies out of it, but if the surveillance state failed in the moment it was needed most, how effective is it in keeping America safe? Well, I found it works perfectly the second it's pointed at you. What the hell was that? Because remember Love INT? How those NSA staffers were caught spying on their girlfriends? Well, if you were paying attention, the same thing is still happening today. But again, is this still just one-offs by a few bad actors, or an established pattern? In just the last 2 years, the Institute of Justice documented at least 18 American police officers criminally charged for using Flock's license plate network for personal reasons. A police chief in Kansas used the cameras to track his ex-girlfriend 228 times in 4 months. And in February 2026, a Florida sheriff's deputy working a TV shoot saw a woman as a background extra, approached her and was told that she has a boyfriend, and within hours, used the same camera network to find her car and pull her over. Like, we literally have bros using surveillance to run game. But the worst may be in May 2025, when a sheriff's office in Texas ran a search across Flock's national camera network to find one specific woman. That one search hit more than 83,000 cameras across the entire country, including states like Washington and Illinois, places thousands of miles from Texas where what he was investigating wouldn't have even been a crime. But here's where it gets interesting. When reporters first asked the sheriff why he ran a national search for one woman, he said that it was a welfare check. He claimed that her family was scared she was bleeding to death somewhere and he was trying to find her in time. But months later, when court records finally came out, this showed something completely different. The sheriff's office had labeled the search a death investigation, but not for the woman, because the real reason was she took the abortion pill. And internally, the records show the office discussing whether they could file criminal charges against her or against anyone who helped her. So again, forget what you believe on the issue. The point is, again, the machine. The public was lied to about why a national surveillance network was used by one local cop to enforce one state's law across state lines by reaching into the cameras of states whose voters never agreed to enforce it. And so the real danger here is exactly what the engineers back in 1994 warned us about. That surveillance that's supposedly built to be used by the good guys will always create a backdoor that end up getting used by the bad ones. But I'll take it a step further, because when you have the power to find anyone or anything, it doesn't take long for even the good guys to see themselves become the villain.
There's terroristic organizations like DFLOC, whose primary motivation is chaos.
So I think it's pretty clear that if the machine keeps getting bigger, that safety was never the product. So what is the product? It's you. afraid of each other. Because the most efficient way to keep 350 million people scared at the same time is to sort you into tribes and sell each tribe the cameras to watch the other one. Because the real danger is and has always been a country sold on being scared of itself. Because again, when there's no revenue and peace, the only way to get paid is a population afraid of its own neighbors. But who am I to say anything? Half the videos on this channel work because I elicit some fear in you that you want to watch until the end, call it human nature or viewer psychology, but the hope is that once you see it, everyone stops being able to sell it. But more importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on this, especially since I'll be diving even deeper into this next week in my free newsletter in the video description.
I wonder if we'll ever get to a time where it all comes down crumbling. Like when people lock in, everybody locks in together. That's mental. That's a good video though. Wow. I never thought that deeply, especially just of cameras. But you ain't wrong. I wonder if the crime rate keeps lowering, how low does it have to go before we go, it's actually really safe and we start getting less scared? Like, crime's low and lower, we're getting more scared. At what point does that flip? Crime goes lower, but we also feel safer. I don't know, man. Everybody just needs to lock in. Anything to do with the government and all that sort of stuff is just so sketchy. But wow, obviously if cameras are everywhere, why is America so dangerous? By Jen. The video and his channel will be in the description. What an amazing channel. Let me subscribe. Yeah, we'll probably watch more from him. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed and thanks for watching it with me. Bye bye.